Hi friends, welcome back to Claiborne, welcome back to my channel, and this is part 3 of the series on making your own walking stick. So this is day 4 for these walking sticks to have been covered with tung oil, that's T-U-N-G, tung oil, and it's been too humid for them to dry. So I put them in the greenhouse under a fan to speed up the drying a little bit. Making your own walking stick and waiting for the coats of oil to dry in between it takes patience, and so it's not anything that you can really rush through. So before I add my third and probably final coat of tung oil, first of all, I do want to talk about the oil that I used. As you can see, the beauty of the wood really came through with that tung oil. Keeps the stick very natural looking. I want to warn you though that that comes from a tung nut, and if you're somebody who has tree nut allergy, that might not be the best choice for you. So you might want to choose something like a linseed oil. I just did these with tung oil, and now I'm going to make 3 more with linseed oil to keep my guests safe over at the rental, where I plan to hang these walking sticks and then let them choose which one they want to spend some time with. So in the meanwhile, let's take these up to the crafts room, and I'll show you how to get embellishments to stick to a stick that you've applied oil to. All right, so now we're up here in the crafts room, aka the cat's room. We have our kitty cat helpers in here. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that your sticks are oiled. Before you can affix anything to a stick that's been oiled, you're going to have to get back down to bare wood, in my opinion, unless you're going to use metal to attach it. So any kind of an attaching material, whether it be epoxy or wood glue or E6000 or silicone or whatever you're going to use, it almost has to touch the bare wood, because the bare wood's going to be porous enough to actually grasp that attaching material, and then thusly hold your embellishment in place. So your feathers. These feathers we did with twine. If you remember, you can go back and refer to part 2 if you want to see how I did these. And for purposes of this video, instead of leather, we just went ahead and used twine on these. So the twine is going to be extremely simple to attach to wherever, whatever length we want to the sticks, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. And then we're just going to glue them temporarily in place after we decide how long we want them. Under that, or over that, we're going to put the leather grip. So your leather grip, if you get one of those bags of leather, they come with pieces that are really large, and this is kind of like what you need to start with, as if it's too small, it isn't going to work. It needs to go around the base of your stick, the handle part of your stick, about 3 times to look really good. So that roughly comes to about 16-17 inches. Mine start off with a square side and a pointed side. You can make the pointed side, which is actually going to show, you can make that as tidy or as rough looking as you want. That's totally up to you. And that's where your good shears come in that really do make a difference. I just like mine a little bit tidier. And you see how easy those good shears cut through that leather. And for the leather, now imagine now you've got your feathers attached, temporarily glued, and then you're going to wrap your leather around that. And so then that's where you're going to use these upholstery tacks. And you're going to put your upholstery tacks at either end of that leather. And it's always good to have a pilot hole. That way you're not banging so hard on your wooden stick and possibly damage your stick. So make yourself a little pilot hole there. Okay, and then on the ends, I'm not adding any rubber stoppers to these, just because that's not in my budget right now. Then for embellishments, in the ends of these sticks, I think we picked an acorn for the natural looking one, and that's basically just going to be wood on wood. So we're just going to make a recessed area, get down to the bare wood in the end, and then I'm just going to use silicone because it's going to adhere to that wood and to this wood. And even though it dries cloudy, it isn't going to matter because only the acorn is going to show. So we can use silicone with that. For Google eyes, again, I want to get down to the bare wood. So I looked for my Dremel, I couldn't find it. But I do have a piece of fine grit sandpaper, and I'm going to sand off 2 little areas on the stick where I want the Google eyes. And then we're just going to attach the Google eyes with probably some E6000. And then for the last one, we wanted to put a glass bead as a topper. And because that magnifies, I thought, how beautiful would it be if we just go ahead and use a signature monarch under there with a little sticker. And I thought that'd be really pretty, but in order for that to show, silicone would be too cloudy. So we're going to use some epoxy resin. When it comes to epoxy resin, you want to make sure that if you're not using a digital scale to measure it out, which I suggest you get a digital scale if you use epoxy resin a lot, just make sure that you have 2 clear cups where you can see exact measurements, because it's very important that you have this equal amounts of resin and hardener for that. Okay, I think we went through everything. So now let's get down to the bare wood on this and get started attaching our feathers to the wood. Okay, I realized that I forgot to talk about the one for the child's walking stick, the one with these pretty colorful feathers. We decided we were going to put this like wizard's ball in the end of it. And so to do that, I suggest that you drill down into the end of your stick, and then these little countersink drill bits make a great tool for that, because they got a little hexes on the sides, and if you lefty-loosey those, you can slide this up and down and make this drill part as long or as short as you want. And this is going to fill up, of course, with our probably silicone, and then that will give that a nice recessed area to fit down into and silicone that wizard's ball in place. Okay, so for attaching your feathers, this is probably the easiest part. You just decide kind of how you want your feathers to hang. If you want the beads all even, if you want them uneven, whatever you're going to do. And then you just decide which is going to be the top of your stick. And then you just simply think about where your grip is going to be and about where you want your feathers to hang down to. Now remember, you don't want your feathers down too low, because that's going to be bothersome when you're actually hiking with this. And you don't want it up too high, because it's going to bother your hand. So you want to actually tie it on there. That's why I like using twine, because this is so easy. You just tie that, and then you just stand and hold it and decide what feels best. And then you kind of walk around with it and decide where you want that. Then you're just going to pull it tight, and all you're going to do is just glue it with some E6000 temporarily, because we're going to wrap the leather around this, and that's what's actually going to hold it in place. So we just need it on there temporarily. So just walk around with it and get a feel for where you want these feathers to end up. Okay, then you just take that leather piece that you have and you kind of start it at an angle, and then you're just going to wrap it around. You just want to make sure that that string is completely hidden. You want to wrap it around, give it about 3 good wraps. It can be as close or as tight as you want, depending on where you want your grip to end. But you want this for a larger hand, so you want it nice and big. Then we're just going to tack it at the top, and we're going to tack it at the bottom. And don't forget your pilot holes. Okay, once that little tack is started, you just have a little pilot hole under there, you poke it through the leather, and then you just, it helps if you put it in a vise, and then we're just going to gently tap that into place. And then we'll do the same at the bottom on that little point, making sure all the while we're hiding all of that string, all of that twine. So I call this part tie it, glue it, wrap it, and tap it. So we're going to put those strings out of sight, temporarily tack it down with some E6000, then we'll take it over to the vise and we'll tap it into place like we did with these. So for the child's wizard topper, I don't need this whole big long piece of wire. I just manipulated that and straightened it out. I just need a little bit of wire to set down inside the staff. So I'm just going to cut that off right about there. More like that. Now we've got something we just glue down in the top. Okay, so we're going to carefully drill and countersink down into this until we just make enough of a recess to set that little wizard ball. Okay, so we made a little recessed hole, and then we'll just fill that with silicone, and we will set that little wizard ball right down on the top of that to spark a child's imagination, we hope. That's so cute. And now for the little Google eyes, I think we'll just scratch off just a couple of places right up here for our beautiful little Google eyes. So you can see how cute this is shaping up. What kid wouldn't love to take this little friend out in the forest? So we're just going to scratch off just enough of the oil that we can E6000 these cute little Google eyes onto the stick. And remember, you got to be down to the bare wood or something like this just simply won't stick. And you don't want a child to be disappointed, have the little eyeballs fall off halfway through the trip. That'd be devastating. Oh, he needs a name. Oh, he's a little walking buddy. Oh, he's too cute with his little colorful feathers. All right, let's finish the others. So the last step is to attach the lanyard to the walking stick. And to do this, you just want to drill a hole all the way through the stick. And you want to be very careful about your angle because you want to make sure you go straight, dead center through the stick. And you may not want to put a lot of pressure on one side. You may want to get partway through, then flip it over and meet it in the middle so that you don't put too much pressure on your stick. And then you want to start off with a very small hole and then work up to the same size, of slightly larger than the gauge of your leather strap. So you just want to drill your hole, small at first, and then work your way up to a slightly larger hole, and then you're going to cut off a length of leather strap for your lanyard. And once you have your lanyard going all the way through your walking stick, you just want to tie it with a double knot like that. And then for extra fanciness, you just want to make some little angles on each end of your leftover. And finally, here we are. So this is how they turned out. I'm really happy with them. I love the way they look sitting out here on the porch of the rental. So I love the little kid one. Isn't that cute? Oh, so cute. And in the end, on this one, I decided not to have the glass bead on top. There's a recessed area, and there's a monarch sticker down in there with epoxy on top. And if you look straight down, you can see the monarch. And I just thought that that was simple enough anymore, and it would have looked kind of cheesy or overdone. So that's it. So bear in mind that this is for someone who's tall with a larger hand, and this one's for someone who's shorter with a smaller hand. And then this one is for a youthful hiker. All right, hopefully you get inspired by this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share. And if you haven't, please subscribe. Many blessings.